All right, now let's bring in Stifel Managing Director Ruben Roy on this. Ruben, stock reaction kind of speaks for itself, but data center segment was up 57% year over year. It seems like that had been an area of concern in the last couple quarters, and also client revenue up 68%, driven by strong demand for Zen 5 and Ryzen, they say. So given that, how much of the concerns that people had about AMD's competitiveness with Nvidia and just overall the consumer appetite, how much of that might be put to bed here?
Hey, John. Well, we'll have to wait for the call. There's two parts to the data center number, right? So as you said, it's a beat. That's great to see. We're seeing the reaction in the stock. And really, throughout earnings season so far, I think a lot of companies in and around data centers, in terms of reports and outlooks, have been better than feared. Okay, so that's one thing. But the data center segment, like I said, has two parts. It's got EPYC, general purpose compute, CPUs that go into servers. So that's one part of the business. And then, of course, you've got the part that investors are very keen on, which is the GPU part of the business that goes into data center AI infrastructure compute. And so that's where there's been a little bit more of a debate, John, around sort of the trajectory of that business as we flow through this year. AMD went from zero, essentially, in GPU compute in 2023 to $5 billion last year. They did talk about a flattish first half relative to the back half of last year when we think about those GPUs. So we'll see how the company breaks it down on the call, but certainly on the print, it's better news than I think some investors were expecting.
Yeah, Ruben, I mean, just the fact that they're saying here, the commentary from Lisa Su, that despite the dynamic macro and regulatory environment, that the Q1 results, Q2 outlook highlight the strength of the portfolio, and they positions them well for strong growth in 2025. Tells us what about the secular nature overall of what we're seeing with this AI build out and implementation right now?
Yeah, we'll have to get, again, a little more granularity on the actual mix between CPUs and GPUs here. However, I would say that the data points coming through earnings thus far from the hyperscalers that are spending a lot of money on AI infrastructure compute have been quite positive, with most hyperscalers either maintaining high levels of capital expenditures expected for 2025 or even raising in some cases. And so that tailwind into AI infrastructure compute remains strong, and I think that's a benefit for these companies that we like AMD or Nvidia. And so we'll see. The other question, though, of course, Morgan, is any of this related to pre-tariff, pre-culmination of tariff policy pull-in, that type of activity? We did hear a little bit about that from Intel on their conference call around at least the PC side of the business, so more consumer-related, maybe not so much impacted by data center infrastructure, but, again, something that we'll be listening for on the conference call tonight.
Yeah, Ruben, on the geopolitical front, a few minutes ago here in Vegas, I was speaking with Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang about the current trade environment, what it would mean for the U.S. if the government continues to restrict, to increasing degrees, sales to China. Here's what he said.
China is a very large market. It's probably going to be a $50 billion AI market in a couple of 2-3 years. It would be a tremendous loss not to be able to address it as an American company. It's going to bring back revenue. It's going to bring back taxes. It's going to create lots of jobs here in the United States. And of course, we just have to stay agile. Whatever the policies are of the government, whatever is in the best interest of our country, we'll support, and we'll stay agile and keep moving on.
Ruben, how much does that China policy question hang over both Nvidia and AMD?
Oh, it's in the stocks to a certain extent. Of course, there's been tariff concerns, geopolitical concerns earlier this quarter. Both Nvidia and AMD talked about inventory write-downs related to increased restrictions on chip sales into China, and they're big numbers, right? So Nvidia taking a $5.5 billion inventory write-down on this. So the numbers are big, as Jensen said. We believe that that's probably 60-65% gross margin inventory that's being written down, so really translates into $8-9 billion of revenue. Now, having said that, the tailwinds around AI infrastructure are really strong globally, right? So it's not just China, United States, sovereign nations, et cetera. We're hearing about things like Stargate and others. otherwise. And so there's still a big tailwind on spend, like I said, but certainly something that investors are keen on. And I think over the next several months, we're hoping that we'll get more clarity on where the policy directionally is going. And, we think best-of-breed companies like Nvidia will do just fine.